Loading shirts onto your press properly is a super important step in the screen printing process, and it's usually one that gets overlooked by people who are just starting out. Load it on right, and you're well on your way to making one of those perfect prints that we all hope for. Load it on wrong, however, and that print is coming out crooked as hell, and nobody wants that. So let's dive into the proper way to load a shirt for centered and straight prints every single time. When it comes to loading shirts, there are many different ways to do it because of all the different techniques out there and the different combinations of them. This is just the way that I've developed and perfected over the last few years. This is what works best for me, and hopefully it helps a lot of you out as well. So before we start, the first thing that you're gonna wanna do is to make sure you have a center line drawn on your palette tape. This is gonna help in a big way moving forward, and I'll explain why a little bit later on. Don't rely on lasers for this because they can shift or move around on you for all kinds of different reasons on auto or manual presses, throwing that center line off. If you have a drawn line, you know you've got a centered and consistent reference point to work from. Depending on which side of the shirt you're printing, you'll want to stack your shirts either front side up or front side down on your cart. With the technique that I'm about to show you, you want the front side of the shirt facing down if you're printing the front of the shirt, and the front side of the shirt facing up if you're printing the back of the shirt, which sounds a little confusing now that I say it out loud. An easy way to remember would be to have the opposite side of the shirt that you're printing facing upwards. For this shirt, I'm going to be printing the front, so I've got my shirts positioned front side facing down. The next thing you want to do is position your shirts. Bring your cart, table, whatever you're using to hold your stack of shirts as close to you as possible without getting in the way of any movement, and of course without obstructing the press. The idea here is to minimize the amount of movement between grabbing the shirt and putting it onto the press. If you've got to take a step or two, or you're doing a bunch of unnecessary twisting, that shit is gonna add up over the course of the workday, and you're just straining your body for no reason. Plus, it's really gonna slow this whole thing down. I like to keep my cart beside me at not a direct 90-degree angle, but I'd say more like a 75, 80-degree angle, just a little bit out in front of me. So basically all I'm doing is just pivoting off my left leg. It almost doesn't even move. I just do a tiny little twist, grab my shirt, swing over, take a step forward with my right, slide it onto the pallet, and that's all the movement my body does. Loading a shirt onto your press nice and straight is relatively easy. It just takes a few techniques and a lot of practice. Do not worry about speed at all right now. Focus on accuracy. If you focus on the accuracy and perfecting the technique, the speed will come on its own automatically once you've built that muscle memory. When I first started printing, I had crooked prints like crazy, and then I had to take my sweet ass time to make sure that shirt was lined up on there straight, and it took me forever to get stuff done. Now I'm to the point where I can pretty much chuck these things on the press at full speed in my sleep, and they're gonna be dead straight 99% of the time. Pinch and lift the top of the shirt and slide your first hand in. When you slide your hand in, you want to have sort of a horizontal karate chop position going on, except with your thumb outward like this. And when you slide your hand in, don't go too far with it. I've seen some people go damn near up to their elbows. That's kind of crazy to me. We're only going to go about halfway up our hand here, basically to the arch in our thumb, and you'll see why in a second. So pinch and lift, slide your hand in, and slide it all the way to the side of the shirt. Then do the exact same thing with your other hand. Pull the shirt tight, slide it off the stack, and give it a quick shake to help straighten it out a bit. With it still pulled tight, take your thumbs now, pinch that bottom hem of the shirt, and now you can let go of the karate chop position. This is why we left our thumbs out, because now with the shirt like this, we've got all this extra fabric hanging down. So when we go to slide the shirt onto the pallet, there's gonna be far less of a chance of anything hanging up as we do that. So you've got your shirt pinched and still pulled tight. Now all you have to do is just eyeball the center of the shirt between your two thumbs, line that up with the center line on your pallet, and just let your eye follow that guideline and slide the shirt on all the way until the shoulder seams hit the top of the pallet. Then just grab your shirt by those shoulder seams. I kind of grab by the outer edge, right where the little nubs are, where they meet the sleeves. Lift up, slide the shirt back until the base of the collar is just about to hang off the edge of the pallet. Let it go, smooth it out, and you're good to go. With enough practice, eventually you're gonna be able to do all these steps in one smooth and fluid motion, but until then, let's have another look at that. In the beginning, you're not gonna be nailing it every single time like this. As I mentioned, it's gonna take some practice, but there are a few ways to see if you've got the shirt on there straight until you've got a feel for it. If you have a shirt with side seams, your life is real easy. All you have to do is just take your hands and run them down the edge of the pallet at the same time and feel for those seams with your fingertips. You'll be able to feel if that shirt's on there crooked or not right away. Or if you have a shirt like this that doesn't have side seams, it's a little bit more difficult, but there is still a way to tell. All you have to do is just grab the sleeves of the shirt and pull them outwards and use the armpit of the shirt versus the edge of the pallet to gauge how straight that shirt is on there. If those armpits look even in relation to the edge of the pallet on each side, the shirt's probably on there straight. If they're uneven, it's most likely crooked. You're almost there. I've got a few more quick tips for you, but before we do that, let's quickly talk about our awesome video sponsor, Skillshare. Skillshare is an online learning community filled with all kinds of awesome classes to help you step up your game in pretty much any field. We're all in the print business here. Things like Adobe Illustrator, Photoshop, Corel, Affinity, Procreate, whatever art software platform you choose to use for your shop are part of everyday life. Skillshare has classes covering every single one of these. I'm personally an Adobe user, so I recommend this class right here by Ray Dombrowski. Skillshare is what I used years ago to get dialed in Adobe Illustrator and Photoshop, and I'm still in there to this day on a regular basis learning new things because, let's be honest, there's a lot to know in those two apps. And since they're sponsoring today's video, Skillshare is giving away a free 1-month trial membership to the first 1,000 of you guys who join the community using the link in the description below. So make sure you check that out. It's worth it. So you've learned the steps to load a shirt on the press straight, and with a little bit of practice, you'll be hauling ass at this in no time. But there are a few other little pointers to take note of. The first is that if you're tall like I am, or if you have a lower height press, rotate your press so that you're either loading between two screens or at an empty print head. Loading underneath a screen is just gonna cause you to bend and hunch unnecessarily, straining your back, and you're most likely gonna get ink spots on the top of your head. So loading with that screen out of the way is a hell of a lot easier. And finally, you're probably gonna come across some shirts that have a crease running down the center of them. This is often referred to as the printer's crease. Do not, I repeat, do not get into the habit of using that as a reference to center your shirt on the press. I've seen those things way off center. I've seen them running at weird angles diagonally across the shirt. They're often some way a lot of the time. So just get used to trusting your eyes and that line on the palette so that you don't end up making a big mistake printing someone's stuff. And that's it. That's everything you need to know about loading a shirt onto your press for clean and straight prints like this one. With enough practice, you'll be tossing these things on your press at full speed, razor straight, without really having to think about it. If you learned anything here today, please drop a thumbs up on this video for me. It goes a long way. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. We're doing all kinds of print stuff around here. And of course, we'll see you again in the next one.